Hey there, ladies. Happy Wednesday. Making sure everything's going on just right. Okay, I think we're good to go. How's everyone doing tonight? Welcome to Wellness Wednesday. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you've had a great day. Before we get into the topic tonight, let me say my disclaimer. So, this is what I'm presenting to you during this Wellness Wednesday is health information and not health advice. Do not stop taking or start taking or change the way you're taking any of your medications. If you feel like you need to make changes, please first consult with your prescribing practitioner so they can help you make those changes safely. And lastly, by attending this Wellness Wednesday, this does not establish a doctor-patient relationship. Alrighty. I wanted to spend some time for this Wellness Wednesday tonight, going over some particular questions, all having to do with toxins and because I didn't get a chance to answer them during the master class, I thought this would be a good time to really dive into this topic of toxins and what this really means, and getting into some of the um, you know, I mean, you'll see by the questions why I'm kind of lumping this all together in the topic for tonight. Um, and so as we go through these questions, let me get to those. I'm going to go to that. I've got them up on my screen so that I can actually read them. Okay, so we're going to start with these questions. And like I said, I think it'll be very, very helpful to help us understand what these do and what as I take it kind of a deeper dive with these questions as a springboard for for being able to do that, dive deep into this toxin topic. So the first question is Michelle asks about heavy metals. She says, I'm curious, how do you test for heavy metals? I can taste metal sometimes. Other times I can smell it on my hands. So this is interesting. Um, so toxins is a broad term for something that enters our bodies that is foreign to what our bodies are going to encounter, and from our just like from the nutrients in our food, the basic building blocks that we get from eating food as our nutrition. Toxins are foreign substances. All right. um, at least in the most general sense of the term. Technically, toxins are from living organisms. Biotoxins are from living organisms, created by mold, created by bacteria. Mold is on fungus. Bacteria, parasites create toxins. Um, Certain animals and organisms produce venoms, which are toxins. Um, and so there you kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about. So heavy metals are, I mean, they're not necessarily considered toxins, but yes, in the broadest sense, they are. Okay, so I'm not trying to confuse you. I just um, technically heavy metals are heavy metals, and they are irritants. That's another way we could look at this word toxins is irritants. What is small enough to get into our bodies to irritate um, the cells and tissues. So heavy metal toxins, we're going to call them that, um, can be particulate in size, like just down to the molecular size, um, or the elemental size. Maybe we can think about it that way. That can disrupt our bodies in several ways. Heavy metals, first of all, displace other trace minerals in our bodies. So we've all heard of magnesium or zinc, or strontium. Some of you have heard of that, maybe. uh, you know, iron certainly, right? These are elements, manganese. There's so many of these trace minerals, right? Molybdenum that we need to operate or function effectively, and so or properly. And so heavy metals, depending on the metal, tend to displace those or force them out of where they're seated to help like a reaction go, because many of our chemical reactions need these minerals. And so these heavy metals come in and like bully these trace minerals out of the way, and so the enzyme doesn't function, right? That seems like a really terrible thing, right? So in fact, yeah, it is. Say copper, for example. I'm just going to pick on glyphosate for just a moment because it's an amino acid and it's not a heavy metal, but it actually displaces copper from the cross-link bonds in our collagen or our connective tissue proteins, right? That would be pretty important to know or to acknowledge that this glyphosate is able to displace that copper, and then that weakens the connective tissue, so it loosens. And no wonder we have all these joint problems, especially in younger and younger people participating in athletics, right? And they get all these injuries so much easier and fast, and it really is happening. Um, anyway, so back to heavy metals. Uh, what's the source, right? She asks how to test for it. Well, the most the best way to test for heavy metals is not necessarily doing a blood test, because the metals will be attracted to the tissues, to where they are. Literally there's some sort of magnetism as well that can pull these toxic heavy metals in. Um, Not all of them, but some. Uh, and so these metals get go into the tissues rather than stay in the blood. So blood testing isn't always as accurate. So how would we test this? Well, it can come out in the urine. So heavy metals can be wasted in the urine, and that's probably the best place to check for heavy metals. You can check in hair samples, hair analyses, and you can check blood levels. You can get blood levels of heavy metals, but the most accurate way would be testing through the urine. And then as long as you're, getting a consistent test through the urine as you're going through a detox process, then you can measure how much is coming out, and then measure till the end of that process until it's no longer coming out. Okay. Um, she didn't really ask any other questions, but I do want to touch on how we acquire these heavy metals. So heavy metals are found in foods, in especially when in processed foods, because they're processed in on metal machinery, and so you can get heavy metals just by virtue of the processing, mechanism. You can get heavy metals from amalgam fillings. All right, now only uh, only 50 only I should say mercury makes up only 50% of these amalgam fillings, which is a big amount, obviously, but there are other metals involved in making these amalgam fillings. So when you chew and at our body temperature, that vaporizes these metals, especially mercury. Mercury itself vaporizes at easily at body temperature. And so as you chew, and there's videos, there are studies on this, and videos showing this vapor coming off these teeth, um, and they're valid. Okay, this has been validated, um, and so you get this mercury vapor in just from chewing on those heavy metal fillings, those amalgam fillings, and that vapor immediately gets inhaled, and it goes into the bloodstream, into the brain, even very, very right there, because your smelling it in, breathing it in, smelling it in, and it goes right through the nose up into the brain. Okay. All right. So you can also get heavy metal toxins from vaccines. Everybody knows that this is a real hot topic and can be very controversial. What is not controversial, if you could still see their list of ingredients, which the CDC has taken down off off the website, it's no longer public knowledge. I've I've gone in and read the ingredients to all of these vaccines that we get, all of them, including all the childhood vaccines, all of the adult vaccines. In each and every one of them, there's preservatives made from heavy metals and especially mercury in the form of thimerosal. So yes, you can get heavy metal toxins from vaccines. And like I said, so many foods and so forth. Heavy metals can be found in the air we breathe. Obviously, it's especially if you're going to breathe in, if you're going to breathe in fumes like exhaust fumes or yeah, you got to be careful of heavy metals. Secondhand smoke contains heavy metals, especially cadmium. That is a big one. So very, very important to know where you're getting these from and if you're at risk for having these heavy metals in your body, because then we know we can help you detox from them. Okay. All right. Back to my list of questions. Cynthia asks how long does mold toxicity cause an issue to your body after you've removed the mold from your environment? So I have stated this before and mentioned that 98% of our patients have the genetics where your immune systems cannot eliminate these biotoxins, or specifically these, among these biotoxins is mold toxins. So the question is a good question. How long does the mold toxicity cause an issue? As long as it's in your body, and that could be forever, and that will compound and multiply in effect the longer it is in your system. Mold toxins affect every system of your body potentially. There are some toxins that affect you globally, so every system. Certain toxins only affect certain things, like mycophenolic acid typically only affects your immune system, but it is a potent immune system disruptor. Why? Well, I don't know why, but why do they make drugs to counteract transplant rejection efforts by the body, right? With these toxins, from these toxins, they actually make the drugs to counter the body's anti-rejection mechanisms when you receive a transplant, an organ transplant, whether it's cornea transplant, some of you may have had that, to kidney and liver transplants, right? Okay, or heart transplants. So these are very powerful toxins. I mean, powerful toxins. Mold toxins, other mold toxins like aflatoxin can not only cause organ damage and damage to your systems, but it can cause cancers. They're very potent carcinogens. Ochratoxin is among those, and ochratoxin is also one that's very neurotoxic. So this is implicated in causing Alzheimer's and dementias, depending on what area of the brain is affected. So it can cause Lewy body. It can certainly cause frontotemporal dementia as well as Alzheimer's disease, which is the most common. So answer to the question, how long does mold toxicity cause an effect? Well, as long as the toxins are in your body and have not been eliminated by your immune system. And most of you are going to have the genes, most of you who are, have autoimmunity, insulin resistance, any other chronic disease, you're likely um, to have these genes. Like I said before, 98% of our patients who have all these chronic issues and autoimmunity have the genes that make you susceptible to biotoxins, meaning you can't clear them out. Okay. Um, Mary asks, what are the sources of molds? So foods are good sources, right? So coffees, um, cheese, cereals, breads, um, cereals. Uh, there's so many food sources for mold toxins, um, and I'm not listing so many others. There you can Google that list, but certainly your environment and water damage. And so let me talk about mold growing after water damage. It it takes about 24 hours, less than 24 hours for mold to start growing on wet drywall. So when you've had a leak, whether it's a leak in your roof or a bathroom leak or a laundry room leak somewhere, within 24 hours, mold starts to grow on that wet drywall, okay, or sheetrock. And it doesn't, in a matter of time, if the leak continues, then the moisture stays, accumulates, and that mold will grow and grow and grow and grow and form spores, which then have to get out of their environment. It's like there's like a pressure, and it will literally come out through any crack and crevice it can, um, like under the sheetrock where the baseboards are. It'll find its way out under the baseboards. Um, Mold that is growing like in kitchens and laundries where the humidity and moisture has accumulated behind the cabinets. So you'll get mold in places that you have no idea that it's even there. You can't see it. Inspectors will go into the crawl spaces and uh, it's they don't see it there, right? So you must not have a mold problem if they can't see it. Or in attics, they'll check your attics out, and if they don't see mold damage up there, then they're like, well, or mold, then they will come back and tell you that there's no mold problem. Um, and I'll tell you, air tests are very hit or miss with these because they won't often be in those, in the air, so to speak, but these spores will settle in the dust. Okay. So as the air blows things around, especially with centralized air, and these again are coming out into, under the baseboards or through one major area is in the ducts, right? The air ducts where you'll have condensation because of the temperature differences outside and inside the duct. So you'll get temperature differences, especially in the winter where you're having hot air blow through, and if there's any sort of condensation that occurs before that warm air starts blowing around your house, and then the air intake vents will collect that dust, right? And in that dust that's now settled around your house, um, above the window casings, on your on your end tables in your bedroom, right behind your alarm clock, where you may forget to dust, um, top of the headboards. I mean, places that, oh yeah, of course, but you don't always think to dust those areas, or windowsills that are covered with blinds all the time. You don't think to dust the windowsills, and so there they are accumulating those spores right there in the dust because they will settle. Okay, certainly carpets, they'll settle in the carpet. So if you're not good at vacuuming a lot, um, or even some vacuums they suck. I mean, I know literally they do, but they're not very good vacuums, and so they'll just kind of blow the stuff around. Well, yeah, it is bringing it up, but it's just blowing stuff around, and it's just kind of recirculating that through your house. And so, really, a good vacuum system is really important to have too. Um, and it's it's interesting. We'll have patients do these Swiffer dust tests, okay, and we'll find this mold all the time, where other tests will not show it, will not find it. And you'll have these mold companies come out and they'll do air tests, and they're not too impressed with the test results, and so they say, yeah, everything's probably okay, and you go about your merry way, and you do one of these other tests that we have you do, and lo and behold, there's major mold issues. So honestly, if it's found, you're gonna want to trust the test that finds it. Like seriously, it's a dust test. You're gonna you're gonna believe an air test that's negative or relatively negative, and a dust test that's done in the same house that finds a ton of mold, spore forming units, and you're not going to believe that test. Okay, that doesn't make sense. You're going to believe the test that shows the mold. It's just common, it just makes good common sense. All right, which test is inaccurate? So this is a really important thing, ladies, to find the source of the mold and then fix it. All right, and there are ways to fix it that are decent. They're not exorbitantly expensive. So, um, all right, let's go back to Mercedes' question. She asks, "How does a person get all the toxins the patient's test shows?" Because remember, in the master class, I showed toxin tests. I showed uh, at least a mycotoxin test. Can't remember if I showed in the last one a total toxin test, but this total toxin test that we do tests for heavy metals. Again, it's all urine test, heavy metals, mold toxins, and environmental toxins. So, um, Mercedes, a person gets these toxins by breathing them in, by eating them, by drinking them. So breathing them, uh, this is how, all right? And that's why it's so important to find the source of the toxins. All right. Ruth asks, can you speak to fungal symptoms in the microbiome? So let's refer to this as a systemic fungal infection, all right, which can cause a wide range of symptoms. And it depends on the specific fungus and the organs involved. And some symptoms include fevers and chills, right? These are often the first signs of a systemic fungal infection. We always think, well, it's got to be bacterial. It's got to be a virus if you got a fever and chills. Well, it can be a fungal infection too. Sadly, my older brother, had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma that was treated with bone marrow transplantation and radiation. Of course, he had to have chemotherapy, which wiped out his immune system, and this was before. Uh, this is something I really couldn't help him with. I won't go any further into that just because of his person. He had personal reasons, and his spouse wasn't too much on board with anything alternative. But sadly, he succumbed to a fungal pneumonia that. I mean, he was having fevers. That was one of the first things that came to, as far as, well, he had a cough, and that's the next symptom I was going to talk about. Could have a dry cough, or, um, just productive mucus, or not. Okay, it could be just a dry cough. And with or without blood, you can have pretty much any of that. Any scenario with the cough with these fungal infections. And they just thought he had pneumonia. Well, they tested and tested, and sure enough, he had a really bad uh, cryptococcus pneumonia. That it was too far. It had gone too far by by the time they got around to getting the testing results and everything. And anyway, sorry to dwell on that. Just just to say that this happens when you've got autoimmunity, right? You can be immune compromised because of autoimmunity and get these fungal infections, and you need to kind of know what to look for. So shortness of breath, caused by inflammation of the airways or lungs. You could have chest pain, certainly, if the infection moves into the heart or lungs. Certainly skin lesions, right? You can have rashes or blisters or patches, white patches. Vitiligo can be a sign of a systemic fungal infection. Certainly fatigue, right? Feeling tired or weak. You can have mouth sores, patches in your mouth or throat. You ladies could have vaginal discharges. It can be a thick, white discharge or foul-smelling discharge. You can have gastrointestinal symptoms like nausea, vomiting, or diarrhea, abdominal pain. Fungal infections can even cause joint swelling and pain, confusion or headache. Okay, brain fog can occur if the infection affects the brain, right? So you can have other symptoms, certainly night sweats, weight loss, muscle aches. You can even have a sensitivity to light. That may be a fungal infection. So it's really important that we note, that some people may have no symptoms too, right? Or even just mild symptoms. But if you do experience any of these symptoms and you think that there may be a fungal infection, especially if you have insulin resistance, uh, ladies, diabetics and those with insulin resistance are more prone to these types of infections. So um, we need to pay attention to these types of symptoms. Okay. And so if you have a weakened immune system, if you have autoimmunity and you have some of these symptoms, we definitely need to get the right tests. And we would often do a stool analysis, right? A comprehensive stool analysis to see if you've got yeast or fungus in your stool. Okay. And if you think you do have some of these symptoms and you're not a patient, then yeah, you probably want to get these things checked out. So, so toxins, I wanted to kind of finish up talking about toxins because we've talked about mold toxins, we've talked about heavy metal toxins, environmental toxins. There are ways to detox your body from all of these types of toxins. And I'm not going to spend too much more time. I'm kind of going over the time, I think. But it's it's important to know that we can get the right tests. Comprehensive testing really lets us know if you probably have these toxins. Then if you were to become a patient, then we would help you through a customized, comprehensive treatment plan that would include detoxing from the toxins that you have. And we would certainly test further for these toxins. That's why I showed you in the class additional tests that we run. Okay. And I will do so in the next class just to give you guys an idea of what these other types of tests are and what they look like, what they show, because these are triggers. These cause imbalances that cause symptoms, and these are root causes. So bottom line is these toxins, whether it be mold, bacterial toxins, parasite toxins, heavy metal, or chemical toxicants. I didn't really talk about those, but certain chemicals, they act, they're obviously foreign to our bodies and cause reactions and cause the immune system to kind of go, what's this? And it has to help take care of those too, those chemicals. So we call these chemical toxicants. And we have to take care of those too when we know they're part of your root causes, right? So that's what we do. And we have I mean, all of the success stories that you guys have seen in the group during the master classes, I'll tell you, they all have had some elements of toxicity, excuse me, caused by the mold or heavy metals, right? Environmental toxins. This is why we test for these things, because these cause issues. These cause your symptoms. So if you're wondering why you're still suffering with these symptoms, they may be low thyroid symptoms. They may be symptoms of insulin resistance, but they also may be related directly to these toxins, which cause these other issues, right? Toxins are a major cause of autoimmunity, insulin resistance, um, and and chronic disease. So cancers, right? These are what cause these toxins are a big cause of these problems. So if this is the missing piece for you, stay tuned in the group. We will be we will be announcing the next masterclass dates as soon as we get that planning finished up, and we will let you know when you can begin to register for the class and then plan on attending, because you will then learn what you can do to get the testing you need to figure this all out. So, all right. So because I've gone over, I won't take any questions, but please ask any questions in the comment section that I can check back later on to see and answer some of those. You guys have a great night. Thanks for joining me for Wellness Wednesday. Remember, ladies, there are answers. Please have hope for healing, right? Because you still have the power to heal. All right. Good night, everyone.